Good afternoon, Quasar Markets Live. So happy to be joined today by the tennis star herself, Agnieszka Wood, our trading mindset coach. Agnieszka, how are you doing today?
Oh my God, you make
And
me
for
laugh.
those of you who don't know, the inside joke is Agnieszka did show us a tennis video that she did a TikTok to on the last episode. So you'll have to view back to see that.
Yes, and it wasn't about me being the star. It was a comparison to trading. Right?
Absolutely,
So
absolutely. So
no,
it brings it
no
in.
tennis advice from me for
So
sure.
staying though towards that same type of thing of tennis and in trading, we always hear consistency is the key. Do people mean about that in trading? What is that? How does that come into play?
That's such a great question, Howard, because we all want consistency, right? But like, what is it? And working with traders for now about 6 years, um, there is so many different interpretation of it. Most traders, they will think, I just want to come to the market every day and consistently make $200 a day. And this is where the whole problem begins.
Yeah.
Trading is not like any other regular job. You cannot expect to just come in and take the check. That's just not how that works. And I don't know if you, like, from your experience of coaching traders, do you recognize that pattern?
Yeah, I've talked about that is that number one, they'll set those goals with unrealistic expectations. I have $1,000 budget and I want to make $100 a day. So you're going to make 10% a day. The best traders in the world don't make 10% a day on a regular basis. So there
Right.
and what it leads to, in my opinion, is over trading. They're constantly trying to make a number.
Absolutely. And it really puts you in a position where you start pushing yourself, right? And
Right.
a lot of times you might make $180, but because you're so fixated on your $200, then you were like, oh, just one more trade and I will reach my goal. And it just pushes you in situations where you then get into a trade without realizing, okay, when I take another trade, there is also a risk that I'm going to lose some of it and then be actually further away from my goal. And that's where this whole domino effect starts. Now
Yeah.
you're losing money. Now you're trying to make it back and you push yourself. Oh, now I want to be where I just was. And it's just not conducive to the right mindset to trade with. But answering the question, consistency. It's like, what is, like, if you think about it, consistent, there is a difference between something that is consistent versus something that is constant.
Right.
And when you approach trading from that employment perspective, like, I do the effort, I put the work in, I get paid, that's something that is more of a constant approach.
Right.
I do work and I know that I'm going to get paid. That employee mindset is often taken into trading, and this is what is causing you to expect something happening constantly and not consistently, because
Right.
consistently has a fluctuation, just like the chart, just like the
Yeah.
price movement. It goes
Yeah.
up and it goes down. And the same with your profit. When you want to have consistent results, you have to put constant effort, but then the result will be consistent over time because there is a fluctuation in there. Sometimes the market is going to give you opportunity and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you make money, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you are focused and really fully present and are able to follow your plan to a T, and sometimes you don't. So that creates that fluctuation where
Right. That brings
consistency is more
inconsistency
important.
into your trading, not consistency like you're talking about. Is
Right.
because you're not looking at your setups, you're looking at your profit and loss more than you're really worried about your charts. And we've seen that where that one, I'm going to make that one more trade leads to, and you've talked about it, even you changed how you trade, and you found
Right.
this within yourself, if I'm not mistaken, is you said,
Absolutely.
hey, I cut down my trading to a couple hours a day because I would get in the afternoon and give back everything I made in the morning.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
And this is really about like knowing what works for you. What works for you to achieve that consistent result. And don't measure yourself based on 1 week, or don't judge your strategy based on 1 week. consistency really needs to be measured over a longer period of time so that you can actually see what is the result within that fluctuation and where is it that I can improve my consistency,
Sure.
how I can decrease my losses, how I can improve my profits, how I can increase the benefit of the time that I'm spending in front of my charts. Like you just mentioned, if you see that you are consistently losing money in the afternoon and give away your profits, stop trading in the afternoon. But you cannot say it after one day, oh, I just lost all my profits, I'm going to completely stop. No, look at the pattern. What is the consistent pattern that is showing up?
Right.
And then make changes.
Yeah, and we see it even with, it goes so many different ways too. It's the same thing that I always used to teach people when it came to the size of each trade. Is you have people who have 2 or 3 successful trades, and then they want to double, triple, quadruple the size of that trade,
Right.
and they give back everything that they've done 10 great trades in one bad trade. And that's why I always stress that no, you go a month or so with the same size for each of your investments. And then if you want to change that, if you want to size up, size down, whatever it might be, but you got to give yourself a good, level of time to be able to see what, to show whether there's consistent results, or did you catch a lucky run? Did you,
Right.
did you really have, the right moves, or did they just fall into your lap? And it's important.
Yeah, totally. And I think the difficult for people is to understand that, like, what needs to be constant in order to achieve consistency. Because in trading there is this variable, right?
Right.
We are the variable to start with because we come with different things into the market. We have emotions that are coming in and different level of being able to handle the pressure. The market is inconsistent because sometimes it's volatile, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you get the opportunity and the other day there is nothing happening, right? So in order to make your consistency more, make your results more consistent, you have to put constant effort. Just like with tennis, you will practice that toss. You will put constant effort practicing that toss in order to get consistent results, because there will always still be some kind of variable. So you are trying to exclude the things that you can, like your muscle memory, right? You can practice that constantly.
And knowing where your target is, just the same way as in trading, knowing where you're trying to put the ball is very important.
Right.
The same way setting your stop loss and your take profits and having a thesis for your trade, not just the entry that you talk about too. Consistency isn't, I think, and I would ask you more, it isn't just about the amount of trades you make, but it's about doing the same things in a pattern style and developing good habits that will provide that consistency that you're looking for.
Right, because this, like, if you build that muscle memory, and in this case, in trading, it's a mental muscle memory.
Sure.
You will start getting more consistency in the result. So it is not like, oh, one day I'm going to prepare and the other day I'm not going to prepare, and that's the fluctuation. No, the whole idea is that you prepare every time. So you do put constant effort, and with this, you are minimizing the amount of the variable in this whole equation, right? And mindset skills is one of those things that you need to practice constantly. You need to prepare yourself constantly. And you do those things in order to follow your plan constantly, really, like every time. And I know that this is like this striving maybe for the perfection, but yes, there will still be a fluctuation in there, but that you can account for to make that consistent result and not a constant result, if that makes sense.
It does. It absolutely does. And I think what you're pointing out is you have to take, like you're saying, it's constant effort, constant. If you're constant in your setup, in your preparation, in your mind, getting your mindset, your chart set, all these things set, if you're constant in that, you then can get consistency. And if you're not constant in that, there isn't going to be consistency because you're
No,
adding so many different variables that there's already
exactly.
enough. We already have the market
Exactly.
that has its own intrinsic issues that it throws at us that are going to come up on a basis. We don't want to
Exactly.
make our own, which, like you said, could be something as simple as not having an exit strategy if stock X doesn't do what I thought it was going to do.
Right. And I think the one of the danger or one of the misconceptions is, if I put a constant effort, because I hear it all the time, it's like, why is it not working? I'm putting a constant effort. Well, because you should be putting constant effort, but you still cannot expect constant result.
Yeah, it doesn't work
There
that
is a
way.
huge
And
difference.
for sometimes it's not about effort, it's about the that's where consistency and content, those two words sort of get stuck because you need consistency in your setup and your preparation and all those things to be consistent in your trading. But
Yeah,
you
you
need
need
that
the
constant,
constancy.
you need
Yeah, I
that
know it's like a
constant
mind
attention to
twist.
detail. Right. You have to be constant with your attention to detail to have that consistency come out. And to limit
Absolutely.
again, to limit the variables like we talked about. Did you
Right.
remember that Jerome Powell speaking at 2 o'clock? So you better beware. As
Right.
I've had three, traders that have 40 years experience each. None of them are trading yet today. They've all said we're waiting. We don't know
Yeah.
what's going to happen, and there's too much uncertainty, and I'll be able to catch it once I hear what he says or doesn't
When you see
say.
the reaction,
I
right?
can react to it at that point, but I
Yeah.
don't want to be ahead of it.
The way that I like to compare that is, it's like having a date with the market.
Yep.
You prepare for a date, you dress up, you make sure you're all ready, right? And then you come to the restaurant, sit in front of the screen, right? You come to the restaurant and you wait. And your date, your opportunity in the market might not show up today.
Yeah.
And next day you go, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to dress up, I'm going to get ready, and I'm going to go there and wait and see. So make sure that in your mind, you don't expect the opportunity to show up just
Right.
because you show up,
Right, because
because it doesn't
exactly
happen.
that's not how. Yeah, I see that even more on the crypto side because it's 24/7, and people think that well, I'll just turn it on now and trade. Well, right now might not be a good time. It
Yeah,
might not fit your trading style. It might not be the right time to enter the market, like we're saying today, as Jerome Powell is about to give our FOMC,
yeah, very
release.
curious about that.
Yeah, yeah, I think the words we're looking for that I think spook the market is uncertainty. If we hear him use the word uncertainty, look out below. Um,
How much
you
more
know,
uncertainty can we get? I mean,
well, that's what yeah, I mean, that's, yeah, I don't know. And it's all about how do people take what he says. What I've been talking about too is what I call the Powell put, when he also pauses as the questions get asked. Sometimes you can see the market doesn't like that hesitation. They want him to have all the answers right there. And it's not easy because some of these guys will rattle off 17 questions to him in one, because they give them
right.
one, the reporter is one shot. So the guy says, okay, so you blah, 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 and you blah, 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 and you blah, 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 and you blah, 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 and you go from there. So, it makes it much more difficult.
Yeah, totally. And I think the uncertainty is such a great point to focus on. It's like, how do you handle uncertainty, right? Because uncertainty is actually, speaking of constancy, is a constant part of your environment as a trader. Uncertainty, you just got to get comfortable with that you just never know what's going to happen, right? And this is one of the factors of that variable that is being brought into your trading. So while you are searching for certainty and that constant result, like, well, I'm putting all this effort and I've been doing this for all my life now, which seems like with 10 years or 5 years or whatever time you've been trading, and I still don't get the results. It should happen now. I've done, must happen now. There is a lot of frustration, but now the question is, have you been putting constant effort all these 10 years?
Right.
Like, because
Well,
it's
and,
almost,
and
it
again, I would go
really,
not to the constant effort. I would go, were you consistent in your preparation? Were you consistent in making sure that you were set up for it? Were you, what
yeah.
do you
Did you
think
do the
about?
right things?
Yeah, because that's where people sometimes lie to themselves too much. And, we all know, you've talked about it many times. We set ourselves up not to fail. We don't want to set ourselves up or admit that we were
Right.
part of the problem. But it really goes back to, again, I'll point to the same thing. People need to sign up for your free habit tracker and your free newsletter so that they get this information and they can properly get themselves set up for the day. And they listen to us at Quasar Markets in the morning so that you get the right information from professionals and you're not going off of. It was amazing. We just had a gentleman on, Kirk Spano, who is, and again, advisor to private equity, advisor that has his own hedge fund, does this stuff. And he just talked about how these groups, that these unscrupulous other hedge funds that he knows of, that he knows these people well, that will be on Wall Street Bets, for instance, or these
Mm,
other social media sites pushing, topic or, theory A, B, or C because they're in stock A, B, or C. And this is that's the exit
yeah.
liquidity for them. And, that is what so many people don't understand. And he talked about this run into zero DTEs that we're seeing and how that's just gambling and bad. So that's the other part I want to point out. You can have all the effort in the world, but if you're jumping from the newest lotto play, you were a meme coin trader,
Right.
you were GME and AMC, and then you went to, the crypto names, the Shibas and the Doge, and now you're doing zero DTEs, naked calls and puts. Guess what? You're going to be one of the 85, 87% that burn out of their money.
Right. Yeah. And then you can ask yourself, like, okay, is that really trading? Like, because I think this is like more fundamental question. Like, how do you approach trading, right? Is this, oh, I'm just going to jump in and make $1 million, or I'm just going to jump in and just, try to get quick buck? Or is it really something that you treat as a career? Are you trying to make this your income source? Because that's a very clear and very serious distinction in how you will approach it. Just like you approach one night stand and someone you want to marry with, right?
I know it's so true. You're right. And it is important because it's important to realize that those other ways, those are lotto tickets. And these folks on Twitter and YouTube don't show you their accounts for a reason, or they obscure parts of it so that it makes it look like trade X is the most profitable trade that ever happened and they never miss. And we've talked about it, right? Beware of those that tell you that there's only up, they're 1,000% right. And, they're going to make you 1,000% a day. Those are the things that you don't want to look for. You have to, like you said, you have to put in the consistent effort yourself. You've got to make sure you're doing the right things consistently on a constant basis. You can't just decide on Wednesday, I'm going to do, X, Y, and Z. I'm going to do my tracker and I'm going to make sure I get my sleep and I'm going to watch, the proper stuff in the morning. And then on Thursday and Friday, not do it and expect to have the same results. Right. And that's where I think traders, that's where my head just, because how can you expect to have consistency? The same way I would ask you tennis wise, what was the first thing when you sent me that video? I'm like, what kind of stroke you trying to hit? Because your toss is all over the place. I don't even know how to, what the next answer is, but that's really it. Is as a trader, you have people just chasing the newest, fad, and you're never going to catch up. That FOMO is only going to be a downfall.
Yeah, and it's actually a really good comparison, because now if I'm thinking how I started my tennis journey, a year ago or so, it's like you first look for a tennis coach, right? You're trying to get someone who is going to teach you. And just like in the market, you're looking for some kind of mentor. You don't know who you can trust, who is good. Right. So you look at some reviews. Most of it, is telling me, oh, I made so much money. I made that much money. And this is what's like, okay, good. And I will make that money too. With a coach, you follow the advice, but then at some point you have to see, like, am I actually growing? Am I actually getting the results that I want?
It works even to tennis, like we talked about. It could be, if someone says, hey, I hit only slice and this is how I'm going to teach everybody, and you don't want to that doesn't fit your style of playing. It
Right.
doesn't work. Like I was never the greatest, quickest athlete. So I wasn't one of those guys that wanted to play the long game. I had a lot of power and I won with power, not with, I guess it would be the opposite of
Yeah.
trading because I didn't win with consistency. I won with power over consistency, but that's a different story.
Right. But that's also a strategy. There are different strategies, you can either trying to, trick someone, or you are just playing the longer game and hope that at some point this person is going to make a mistake, right? If you're technically really well. So really, really good. So, but really the process is not very different in how you approach it. Like if you just want to go out there and play, you can always go and hit the ball and, probably have some fun. But if you really want to do something serious and have results, you got to approach it seriously.
Right.
And put constant effort into perfecting or into mastering or into at least practicing the skills that you need in order to play tennis. It's not like, it might sound boring, because if people say, you want to learn serve, first learn to toss. It's like, oh my God, that's boring. I'm going to just stand there and throw the ball in the air. Come on. Like, how long am I going to do that?
We tell people
as long
when they
as it
first
takes.
want to start learning, okay, well, first you got to learn charting. And this means we're going to spend some time on, and we're only going to put the following, they always want to know what's the newest indicator. I said, well, we're going to start with just a couple of MAs. Well, I already know all about those. Okay, that's great. Well, but that's where we're going to start to set a foundation, because again, the same way with tennis or any sport or anything you do, driving a car, if you don't learn how to park, you can't get to the restaurant, right? I mean, you can if you have a valet, but let's not go there, but it all works the same way.
You have self-driving car.
We're getting there. I just saw in California that you see Tesla was up a little bit earlier. I don't know if they still are, because they've gotten approval in California for self-driving. Yeah, they're up about 4.5%. They are doing well today.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that you hit on it. It is so important for that. And I'm looking back. It's funny at some notes that I have from one of the other talks that we did, and I think part of consistency too would be aligning your goals with the way that you're going to trade, with the strategy you're using. Because again, I think it goes to, you can't expect consistent results if you haven't, set in your mind, like you said, the goals to have for a week, for a month. And what I mean there is not necessarily, I want to make $100 a day. In fact, we just said we don't want you to do that, but more that this is the asymmetrical approach I'm going to use to do this, or I'm going to use the following 3 techniques, and I'm going to take profit here. I'm going to use it and a crossover of, the 20 and 50 day MAs. And then you need to align it with what you're going to do.
Absolutely. And I think the part of the alignment is also to align your strategy to you, how you trade, what you feel comfortable with, instead of just, taking blindly someone else's strategy and just try to trade it. And especially if it doesn't work, you just push it and push it. And like a lot of times people would ask me, like, how are you able to get this good results from your strategy? How do you know exactly that this is the exact entry and this is the exact? Yeah, I didn't get there right away either. I had a strategy, and then I would literally, look and watch and review the trades to see how can I get my risk reward better. Like how is this behaving? On which time frame is this? Can I follow this? And how can I make my strategy to, like, literally perfect it, because I am part perfectionist, perfected to the point where I can see a pattern that is consistently repeating, which doesn't mean it always works. It doesn't have to always work, but that's why it's consistently repeating and giving me certain results. And yeah, by now it's pretty easy. It's like, I know exactly where my entry is. I know exactly where the stop should be. And if the price gets there, I know the setup is not valid. I also know that when I enter, what I can expect.
I was going to say an important point to point out there is, it doesn't mean the trade's going to be successful. And it doesn't mean that we're buying or selling at the perfect price. We're not saying that we're picking the bottom or that we're selling the top. We're saying the setup fits our trading strategy. I look for something to break above X, and go from there and
exactly.
do it.
And be also, be also okay with it. Like if you, if your strategy, if you say I'm getting consistently 3-1 or 2-1 or whatever your parameters are from that strategy, make an agreement with yourself. Okay, I'm going to trade that this way for X amount of time. And then in the meantime, I'm going to review it. Is there a consistent basis for me thinking I can get more out of it? That I see that every time I get out of 3-1, the price is going higher in this market condition, right? For example, when the market is trending, I'm leaving money on the table. But now I can tell that it is a pattern based on, I don't know, watching it for a month or two.
Right.
Or watching it, at least for a certain period of time, where I can say, well, I can consistently see that I leave the money on the market, on the table. And it's not something to be angry about, or it's not something that to be like, I'm a bad trader. No, just look at that from a process perspective and say, okay, so this is what I'm doing right now, and this is how it can be improved. Keep putting your focus on your process and on your strategy. Do not project everything on yourself as a bad trader, because this is gonna trigger you emotionally,
Right.
and make you fight the market.
Absolutely. I would say another part of that would be too that you should review every trade. Again, the more and more I've been talking over the last few weeks with more professional traders, they talk to me about the fact that, these are people that worked at JP Morgan for 40 years on their trading desk of Forex. They said there isn't a trader there that doesn't review every single trade that they make. And they don't beat themselves up. They're looking to say, hey, okay, this was the pattern, and this is what I was seeing, and this is what I did. Was I right, or do I figure out that there's another layer to the pattern that plays out that might be in my favor, or that I should exit earlier if I see this, whatever it is, and not enough non-professional traders are willing to do that. So I do think that goes to consistency too. I know you talk about journaling a lot, and again, I love to reiterate it because, you and I talked about it, because I made it very clear I'm not very big on journaling. But you just said it's just putting a few little notes on your chart. Print up the chart. I take pictures of them all. I don't even print them up. I just take the pictures, save the thing, and I write myself a little note. Keep an eye on when it hits. The RSI would hit 40 on this pattern. Keep an eye next time, because I'm noticing something.
Right. I mean, and it's such a great way to also see, like, okay, for example, with indicators, right? Like, if you want to, like, at some point, my strategy gives me standard. When it works, it gives me 3-1. And on a regular basis, I see it can give me more. So when the market is trending, sometimes it gives, 10, sometimes even more. But these are the really good days, okay? But the way that I started thinking, okay, so how can I get at least the 3, but then maybe more, is then I started looking at what indicator I can use in order to tell me when to get out, right? So then I move my stop to 3-1. So I'm like, okay, whatever happens, at least I have that. Right. But now, how am I trading my stop? Am I using a trend line? Am I using a MA? Or what am I using to tell me it's reversing, right? Because I don't want to give all that profit if I'm like 9-1, and I also don't want to get out too early. So
it's the $1,000 question every day, right? I am actually a believer in trailing stops. I know many aren't. I have because I come in the world of crypto, which is the volatility so much that you can give it back too quickly. It'd be the same thing for these 0 DTE, naked call, buyers and sellers. I would be telling them the same thing. You have to use a trailing stop, because if, like you said there, if I go into profit, I can't go out of profit. I've got to get that. I got to keep it as a win. Just because of the way my strategy is and the way volatility in that one asset set works. It isn't how I trade the Mag 7 necessarily, or something like Berkshire Hathaway. Right.
And this is, again, the agreement with yourself. And like, based on reviewing my charts and my trades, I was able to say, okay, the moment that it dives under a 9 MA for the first time, I'm still good. But when it breaks it the second time, I
It
don't have
doesn't
to
bounce
wait
back. I
anymore.
use VWAP for that. So very similar. Yeah, I'm using
Yeah, I
VWAP.
actually don't use
Yeah,
VWAP on my chart, so I use 9MA for that. But
yeah.
it's just those things are only possible when you're actually reviewing or when you put them next to each other and you spot the pattern. You say, like, okay, this is a common theme. Now I can start building on it and see, is it actually working for me or is it working against me, right? And then don't make yourself crazy that, oh, should I not? Should I get in? Like, take it all out of the
Well,
system.
and you've talked about it. I've noticed it on, less is more. I can look at certain, I can look at my charts in the morning, and I'm just going to pull something up here for that. Oh, I don't have it up, so give me 1 second. I didn't think that through. um, but like if I go to the Mag 7 because I look at them so often, I can pretty much I don't have to look at Nvidia. I know 118.50 is its resistance point right now. And if it
Mhm.
doesn't break 118.50, it isn't going anywhere. And I know that by just looking at the number. I don't have to even look at the chart. But I
Right.
know because I've already looked at it. I know, whoops, I keep pulling up the weekly chart when I'm trying to pull this up. I've just seen the number. I know where it is today, so
Right.
I don't have to have the chart up at all times to do it. I know where it's going to fight out and what I find for myself, and I think this is important for traders, I don't watch the chart every second because I used to make too many, the diamond hands went away and I became a reactor, right? I didn't respond,
Right.
I reacted, and we never want to do that, as you've taught me. So what I've learned is I can just look and say, okay, I'm in Nvidia. I know where I'm in the trade. I know what I have to look at. And if it breaks with that 118, then I have to change what I'm going to do at that point. Until it does
Right.
that, it's just doing its thing. And I know what my VWAP here at 117.13 for me. And I already
Mhm.
have my exit strategy there for that. So I'm ready. But that's what I wanted to point out is I do think some people, they'll stand there and study that thing and look at it until they convince themselves of something.
Right.
And I'll say it
That's
that way
so
because
well
that's what you're
said.
going to do. You can convince yourself of anything. If I take away, I
Absolutely.
can't tell you how many people I've gotten with that over the years. Well, I'll take the ticker away so they can't see that. And they only see the chart. And I'll say, do you think this is bullish or bearish? After they've already told me that they like stock X as being bullish today. And then they look at at a chart that doesn't have the fact that it's Tesla or Nvidia,
Uh-huh.
and they tell you the exact opposite. And I then hide it and say, guess what? I just changed the time frame. You're looking at the same stuff.
This
It's
is
not to
too
trick
funny.
somebody. It's to show you that
Yeah.
preconceived notions of what's going to happen in the market sometimes lead us to make poor decisions.
Yes. More than not.
Yeah,
Right.
you got to play the
Because
hand in front of you, right? We bring it back to poker all the time. The gentleman that we just had on again plays in the World Series of Poker. He said, although he said he's nothing more than a donkey to carry the money from Milwaukee to Las Vegas because he's an amateur that wins the amateur tournament there, gets into the big one, and then loses immediately.
oh
So
my
he called himself. He was just a
donkey.
mule or a donkey that brought the money to the real players. So it was funny to hear him say it that way.
That's too funny.
But it
At
is. You
least you
got to
can
play.
laugh about it.
Yeah, well, you have to, and that's how you have to take the market. If you take it too serious, now don't get me wrong, I take my money very serious. I don't take the market overly serious. Market
Yeah.
has no emotion. It doesn't owe us anything. We are not married to it, and you've got to understand some of these things. And that didn't come overnight. I'm going to be very honest. That took 5-10 years for me to get to the phase where I can look at Bitcoin go down $1,000 in a minute and not have a heart attack.
Yes. Well, yes. And that's, that time depends on how quickly you can get over yourself.
Yeah. No, you're
Right.
right. And realize, and that is it. The best traders are the traders that realize they're not always correct because they look at the inverse. I
Right.
look at, and I do that with my charts a lot where I don't necessarily decide whether I want to go long on short because I want to see what the market's doing. What I do is I pick pivot points where I say, this is the line in the sand. Like I said, if I, pull up one of the charts and I say, on NVIDIA is a terrible one because it's right in the middle of it. But NVIDIA is a great one because it did it. It played out what I said it would play out. I had this liquidity zone targeted up in here that I thought it
Right.
would get to. And why does it look like that? Hold on 1 second. What did I do wrong here? That's what I did wrong. Okay. And I was waiting for it to get into that liquidity. Oh, that's because it's the weekly chart, not the daily. I wonder why nothing looks right here. But Come on. Anyways, if you can see my chart, why is it doing that? I'm going to a different chart. What is going on with my chart? Oh, it's locked to the bar ratio. I locked it to the bar ratio. There we go. Yeah, I had it locked, but you could see on NVIDIA here now, hopefully it won't be locked. It's not. I had my zone. I wanted it to broach this liquidity zone, and I waited and I waited and I waited and I waited. And if you got in there, and what did it do? It got almost all the way up to the exit liquidity zone. I didn't need to watch it. I knew what I was looking for. But I knew those zones. If it broke below this 101, I was out of my trade. It invalidated everything I was thinking, because the next support isn't to the 80s here. And that's what you see.
And then when it breaks that, that will be interesting to see.
And the problem is that we have too many retail traders that don't have that in their mind. And when it breaks below 100, they can't admit defeat, and they watch it go to 80, and they watch it go to 70. And all I got to do there to just scare people and say, just look at Tesla, right?
It can always go lower and it can always go higher if you're short. There's so many examples. I like to take
Tesla was trading
charts.
at 500.
Yeah.
233. So, and that was the high flying of the high flying. And I used to have a very big saying that was, don't fade the Musk, because, all the people that have done it in the past have ended up on the wrong side. But the market changed, right? He went from being Superman to supervillain, and now people are against him. So you have to take that into account.
It happens so quickly. It's pretty incredible what we are seeing these days.
Yeah, and I think the other part where I would point out for retail traders too is, like, right now they all think the world is ending, but today is, these are the days that you want to start to look at what is a value now. What did you want to buy? I know that you did such a good job with Carvana last year.
Well, actually, a few days ago, it was already a week ago. You can pull up a chart if you want. I bought Hood because I just saw, it was going down. It actually went almost 50% from the highest point, and it had a really nice support area around 36.80, so around 37, and it was coinciding with moving 200-day on weekly chart. So I basically put my order at 36.80 and left it there with a stop and waited.
Yeah.
And got it. And yesterday, or actually the day before yesterday, I had my target. It reached my first target. So I took it off and then waited for the pullback. So this was like a very quick trade,
Yeah. And that's what happens sometimes. They are quick. Steve and I a while ago were Mealy was one that we wanted to get in long term, and it shot up like 15% the day after we bought it.
Yeah.
And at that point we got back out of it. You got to take, we talk about it a lot. And what it was is we bought on the gap down because it had bad earnings, but it just made no sense.
Which one is that?
What's that? Mealy, which is the Amazon of South America.
Okay. That's Mealy.
And, it was at a resistance level, and it had been trying to break through it, which is why I had it marked out, but it couldn't. It got rejected and it fell way down. And it just, Steve was like, listen, this is one we want to get into. And we thought it would do what it did in this time, where it kind of came back like that, and it would take us a month, 2 months. But if you look on this day, it jumped from 17. We sold it $19.99. And you're like, it's up $300 in a matter of 2 days. I can't, that's up 2 straight days. You're like, I got to take the profit. And I think that's an important thing to talk about. Bulls make money, bears make money, pigs get slaughtered is my line that I use for that. And, what that is again, have your exit strategy, have your take profit, and stick to them.
Yes.
We said, when we bought that day, we said, this is going back to 2000. I didn't think it would do it in 3 days from 1700. In fact, I thought it would play out like it did later on the second time when it retested that level. And then it took it, 2.5 months for it to play out the way it should have. But you have to be ready to take advantage of those, and don't be afraid. You can always get back in. And we did get back in. If I go back to it for one last time, it came right back down. And then it took us the longer period to get our money out of it.
And especially in the market environment as right now, it's very volatile. So you can play the volatility. And like I took my profit on Hood because it was simply a trend line. And I'm like,
Yeah.
if it might go higher, but I expected to at least go to that level because that's the next resistance.
Yeah,
So
that's the next
if I
pivot point I have to worry about. Could it break through
yeah,
that pivot? Things make one measured move, two
yeah,
measured moves, they make three. I've seen Bitcoin
yeah,
go 5, 6, 7 measured moves.
right.
But at each measure, I'm taking some profit and setting
Yeah, you
myself
can
up, or
always get
taking
in.
full profit and wait for the inevitable pullback. Nothing goes up
Right.
straight forever.
Right. So yeah, this was pretty nice trade. I took over 16%, yes, 70% almost. So like, okay, it's not too bad
Nothing
for 4
wrong with
days.
that. Nothing wrong with that at
Nothing wrong
all.
with that.
Okay? But you stuck to you were consistent and stuck to the way you trade and your
I
strategy.
didn't even watch it. I just got the alert on my phone. It's like, oh, the trade got executed, and then trade got executed. So
and that's what I'm telling people now is that's what you sort of get your wish list out in times like today, because let's face it again, if Powell comes out at 2:00 and he doesn't say nice things and he puts the market in turmoil, things will drop, and we could see what is an up day. The Qs were up about 1.5. Now only up 1, but up 1% could be down 3 in a matter of an hour and a half. So be prepared to have a wish list to buy maybe Nvidia if it gets down to that 101 level. Right now it's trading at
just watch for your levels. Watch for like where would you, and also you don't have to buy blind. I mean, if something is completely tanking,
set an alert. It works. We have enough technology nowadays. Use your Quasar Markets app and you'll get your alert and you'll get all your stuff. And you'll be able to see that. In fact, did I pull it off? Oh, I did. Never mind. I had
just whatever you do, make sure that you are putting the right effort on a constant basis, and you will have consistent results from it, because there's always a variable. Because even if you are putting constant effort, there will be times where you fail to do that. So if you want to reach the star, if you want to reach the moon, shoot for the stars, basically.
Absolutely.
So try
if you
to
don't,
be
you can't get there.
In your effort. Yeah. So try to be constant in your effort, so that even when you fail, you still will have the consistency.
Absolutely. That's not the reason that you failed.
Right.
Lack of consistency.
Right. Exactly.
Awesome. I know I got to let you get out of here. We've kept you way too long. Although I will tell you, it's the first time we broke 200 viewers on our quick little interview here. So that's fantastic.
Nice.
Thank you, everyone,
I hope
for joining
it was helpful for everyone.
Yeah, make sure that you join Agnieszka again at www.aheadcoach.com. Get you to her website. She's got so much great data. I do have it attached, a link directly to this video, so you can look below the video and you will see a link in the description. Agnieszka, thank you so much, and we will see you on Monday.
Thank you so much, Howard. Have a great day, and let's see what Powell will bring us.
Absolutely. And remember to stay calm and don't react, right?
Yes.
You want to
breathe.
respond.
Just wait for the reaction of the market and then make your plan.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.